21 meeting of the Mansfield Select Board to order. And I'll have to read this statement first, and then we'll do the pledge. So first of all, welcome back to everyone in person. It's nice to see part of your faces again. Whereas both the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Massachusetts Department of Public Health have advised residents to take extra measures to put distance between themselves and other people to further reduce the risk of being exposed to COVID-19. Governor Baker has issued an order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. In order to satisfy the open meeting law requirements, today's Town of Mansfield Select Board meeting will be available to the public via GoToWebinar and Mansfield Cable. The instructions for joining via GoToWebinar are in the meeting notice on the town's website at mansfieldma.com, and then by clicking on today's date on the calendar. To ask questions or comment during the virtual meeting, you must register and join the meeting via the GoToWebinar app and submit the question through the questions option in your control panel or raise your hand to speak. Or you can send your questions to selectboard@mansfieldma.com or by phone during the town hall hours of operation at 508-261-7370. It is important to us that you have a platform for your questions and comments and that you receive accurate information in a timely manner. And we ask that you allow 24 hours for us to respond. So that's it. So thank you. All right, so we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mr. Delvecchio will be joining us momentarily. Before we get into tonight's agenda, as the newly elected chair of the Select Board, I'd like to open tonight's meeting with a statement, and this will take me about 5 minutes to deliver this statement, so please bear with me. I'd like to respond to recent posts and comments that have been made on social media and elsewhere during the course of the recent town election. These comments relate to the Select Board's decision to increase the town manager's compensation back in October 2019, which was some 19 months ago. Let me preface this statement by stating that, as a member of the Select Board, I understand and I appreciate that Mansfield residents may disagree with the decisions that board members make on behalf of the town of Mansfield. Select Board members are elected to do what we each believe is in the best interests of our town and its residents. It's to be expected that some people are going to disagree with some of the decisions that the Select Board makes, and that is everyone's right as an American. Welcome, Frank. That said, Select Board members have a right and a duty to set the record straight when inaccurate and false information is being circulated in public. This is especially true when this information calls into question the integrity or motivations of members of the Select Board. During the course of the recent election campaign, as well as the days following the election, numerous public posts and comments have suggested that the Select Board gave the town manager a raise in secret or made, and here I'm quoting from a recent campaign flyer, a backroom deal. I'd like to take this opportunity to educate the public, including those who believe that the Select Board acted in a non-transparent manner, about how town manager compensation issues are actually managed here in Mansfield. So here are the facts of town manager Kevin Dumas's hiring, performance evaluations, and compensation. These facts have all been a matter of public record going all the way back to December of 2017. On December 18th, 2017, the Select Board interviewed 3 finalists for the job of Mansfield Town Manager: Walter Wilk, Michael Hartman, and Kevin Dumas. At that same meeting, the board voted 4-1 to enter into contract negotiations with Kevin Dumas. On October 27th, 2017, Kevin Dumas signed a contract to become our new town manager with a starting salary of $160,000. Soon thereafter, the contract was posted on the town's website and has been publicly available ever since then, as is our standard practice. In May 2019, the Select Board evaluated Mr. Dumas's job performance in an open televised meeting. On a scale of 1 to 5, with 4 meaning very good and 5 meaning outstanding, Mr. Dumas was given an overall rating of 4.0, or very good. On July 17, 2019, the Select Board voted to increase Mr. Dumas's salary 3.12% to $165,000. The term of Mr. Dumas's contract was also extended through January 2nd, 2022, which is 1 year longer than the original contract. Now, in October 2019, Select Board members became aware that Mr. Dumas was being recruited by another town and that the salary level being offered was significantly higher than what he was earning here in Mansfield. On October 2nd, 2019, all 5 members of the Select Board met in executive session to discuss the town manager's pay. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss what, if any, counteroffers the Select Board wanted to make in order to retain Mr. Dumas as the town manager in Mansfield. For those who may not be familiar with the rules, under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, an executive session allows for private discussions to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Contrary to social media posts that have suggested otherwise, this is standard operating procedure and is no different than in how the Select Board has handled town manager compensation issues in the past. On October 16, 2019, the Select Board met again in executive session to discuss this matter further and voted to make an adjusted salary offer. In that meeting, the board voted to present Mr. Dumas an offer for a contract amendment that would offer to increase his base salary to $207,000 effective July 1st, 2020. As a first step, the proposed offer would set the base salary increase to $186,300 effective October 18th, 2019, that's an increase of 12.7%. The additional increase to $207,000, which was an 11% increase, would be offered to take effect July 1st, 2020. The vote was 3-1 in favor, with Mr. Schoenveld voting no. Mr. Ryan was unavailable and not present at that meeting. On November 6, 2019, the Select Board voted 4-1 in an open, televised meeting to approve changes to the town manager's contract. As the public meeting minutes clearly show, Board Chair Jess Aptowitz stated publicly for anyone to hear that contract negotiations with Mr. Dumas were successful and that the Board and Mr. Dumas had reached an agreement as follows. Mr. Dumas's base salary would be adjusted to $186,300 effective on October 18th, 2019, and then to $207,000 effective July 1st, 2020. There was also a clause to be added to the contract by mutual agreement that should Mr. Dumas decide to leave his job, he would be required to give the town 1 year's advance notice. The publicly available meeting minutes also state the following, and here I quote, Mr. Schoenveld noted that the process and timing was before the annual review time, and he had hoped to have more time to do a competitive salary review, and he would like to introduce a 360-degree review of the town manager, but agreed that he was happy with his performance, but would be voting no based on the timing. Mr. Ryan had no comments. Chairman Aptowitz stated that he was extremely pleased with Mr. Dumas's performance, and he hears nothing but good things from the community on his performance. Mr. Trowbridge stated that in a very short time, Mr. Dumas had moved things along very quickly. Mr. Del Vecchio apologized for not being physically present, but wanted to call in and show respect to the town manager and the residents to make this vote. He thought the board was offering a competitive market-based contract to the town manager. The board voted 4-1 to approve the new contract, with Mr. Schoenveld voting no. At this same meeting, as we do at every meeting, we provided anyone who had a comment or question the opportunity to speak up. No comments were raised by residents nor by any members of a town board or committee, including the Finance Committee, at this Select Board meeting nor at any subsequent Select Board meetings. In regards to Mr. Dumas's current salary, it's helpful for residents to know what other town managers and town administrators in our area currently earn as base salaries. The Norton Town Manager, as of July 1st, 2021, will have a base salary of $162,074. The Foxborough Town Manager will have a base salary of $213,631 as of July 1st. The Norwood Town Manager will have a base salary of $203,162 as of July 1st. The Franklin Town Administrator will have a base salary of $201,756 as of July 1st. And then the Walpole Town Administrator currently has a base salary of $199,875. And the Sharon Town Administrator currently has a base salary of $202,985. The average of these 6 base salaries is $197,232.16. As these numbers indicate, Mr. Dumas's compensation is competitive with the pay of other surrounding town managers and town administrators. Since being hired in January 2018, Mr. Dumas's performance has been evaluated formally by the Select Board twice. As previously noted, in May 2019, he received an overall rating of 4.0, very good, on a scale of 1 to 5. And in March of 2021, he received an overall performance rating of 4.06. It's important to note that when a town manager leaves his or her position, it can often derail forward progress for 1 to 2 years. A search committee has to be formed, candidates must be vetted and interviewed. It can also be quite expensive to hire a consultant to recruit qualified candidates. And even after a replacement is hired, it can take a new town manager anywhere from 6 to 12 months to get fully up to speed. These factors played a role in the Select Board's decision to give the town manager a substantial raise. So to summarize what actually occurred, a majority of the Select Board voted to increase the town manager's compensation in order to retain his services. As the performance evaluations indicate, Mr. Dumas is an effective, hardworking, and knowledgeable town manager. Keeping him on board required us to offer a more competitive salary. That's exactly what the Select Board decided to do with full transparency and in full compliance with Massachusetts general laws. While residents are always free to disagree with this decision or any decision we make, recent assertions that the Select Board had acted secretly and without transparency are simply inaccurate. And going forward, as board chair, I hope I speak for all members of the Select Board when I pledge that we will continue to operate with full transparency, as we have always done in the past. I call on all the other town boards and the committees to do the same. And finally, I urge all members of every Mansfield board and committee to work cooperatively, communicate honestly and respectfully, and always work in the best interests of all Mansfield residents. Because in the end, we're all part of the same team, Team Mansfield. So thank you. Okay. So, looking at our agenda here, next up, we were going to have town manager's report, but since we have a full agenda and not as much time as we may need, we're going to jump ahead to discussion and consideration of annual town meeting warrant articles.
We have residents' questions and comments.
Oh, yes.
Skipped over that.
Thank you for that, Mike.
You're welcome.
So before we do that, we have residents' questions and comments. And Carrie, can you instruct people on what they need to do if they want to comment?
It is important to us that you have a platform for your questions and comments during this meeting. Therefore, to ask questions or make a public comment during tonight's virtual meeting, you must have registered and joined the meeting via GoToWebinar, where you now have the ability to submit your question or comments through the questions option in your control panel, or you can use the raise your hand option to be allowed to speak. And I see Mr. Scott Feely is raising his hand. So
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, we have no audio on the TV. I'm on my iPad now, but I also have the cable TV on, and I'm getting no audio. That is my comment.
After that beautiful speech.
Thank you for letting me know. I will see what I can do about that.
Is there audio on the streaming?
I'm on my iPad and I'm getting it. And I just logged in from the outside as a resident would, and I'm getting audio, just not on the cable TV.
Okay.
Mike, you should reread that later, I think.
Okay. So All right, well, we will proceed, and hopefully that technical problem will be fixed.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
want me to just pop my head into the cable access and see if they can give Jack a call to see if there's anything they need to do? Or they can hear?
Yeah,
Yes, we have, Susan knows that there is a problem, so we are working.
Thank you. Good, thank you.
okay. So, for the annual town meeting, which will be May 24th, Monday at 5:30 PM at the Xfinity Center, we're going to go through the warrants, and I should also mention that at 7 PM tonight, the town manager is doing a virtual walkthrough of town meeting, so anyone can go to the town website and watch to get a preview of next Monday's town meeting. All right, so I've been informed just a little while ago, some of the, actually quite a few of the articles on this warrant are going to be skipped. So warrant, items 1 through 15 are all the kind of routine financial articles, and of those, I was just informed, if anyone wants to make notes, that Article 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 11, and 15 will all be passed over.
And that's consistent with what's in the motion, draft motions right now, right? There are no new ones that are,
There's no new ones.
Correct.
Okay,
It's just been subtraction, all right.
Neil, are they just passed for tonight or passed in total? Total. Okay.
Passed in total. So if you like, I can give just a real quick summary of these financial articles that remain, and then we could do a vote as a block on all of them. Yes.
I need to discuss Article 1, Motion 1 in detail.
Okay.
Whatever you want, I'll be happy to discuss it.
Yeah, speak up a little bit.
Speak up a little bit.
I need to discuss Article 1, Motion 1 in detail, so when we get time for it, let me know.
All right, well, we'll start with Article 1. That's a logical place to start. So Article 1, if approved, establishes the fiscal year 22 budget appropriations for municipal expenses as well as debt, insurance, and employee benefits for all town and school departments. Article 2 is, if approved, establishes the fiscal year 22 budget appropriations for the school department. Article 4, if approved, provides the appropriation from electric department receipts for the electric department maintenance and plant operations for fiscal year 2022. Article 6 will establish the fiscal year 2022 budget appropriations for the water, sewer, airport, and parking enterprise funds. Article 10 will contain several motions to fund capital improvement program committees' recommended town, school, sewer enterprise, water enterprise, airport enterprise, and parking enterprise projects, and will fund the capital improvement program committee's recommendations. Article 12 is an annual article that, if approved, allows town residents to receive 100% of various real estate tax exemptions offered in the Mass General Laws for fiscal year 22. Article 13 is required per Mass General Law, Chapter 53E and a half, to annually set the expenditure limits in our revolving funds. Article 14 is to see if the town will raise, appropriate, and borrow or transfer from available funds a sum of money for deposit in the following funds: employee other post-employment benefits liability trust fund, future payment of accrued liabilities for compensated absences reserve fund, special injury leave indemnity fund, town special education reserve fund, SMHG employee benefits stabilization fund, and the plain old stabilization fund.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
one clarification. You're reading from the articles, but not the motions, and they differ significantly. Like on that last one, the motion only applies to what, Barry?
The stabilization fund.
Stabilization fund, right. So there's appropriately discrepancy between the two, because that's how we build these things.
Yeah.
But just pointing that out.
Thank you for pointing that out. All right. So, do you want to discuss Article 1 first and then do a vote, or?
How about this, Mr. Chair? Why don't we make a motion to support and then
Okay.
ask for discussion?
Okay. That sounds
That's your
good.
call.
All right. You want to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move that with a select board support Article 1. Second.
Got to speak into the microphone too, just.
Apologize.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair,
yeah,
move to support Article 1.
Second.
okay. Any discussion, Mr. Jeanbel?
Yes, I have a discussion item for Article 1, Motion 1. I brought this up a month ago, but yet nothing has been done of it. First off, the article is written, Motion 1 is written inappropriately. We do not have an SMHG Employee Benefit Stabilization Fund. 2 years ago, in May of 2019, Article 22 and Article 23 passed by the town meeting at the time, voted to establish, let me see if I can find it here. I move that the town vote to create an Employee Healthcare Stabilization Fund. It's a lot different than an employee benefit whatever it's called, employee benefit something or other. So it's absolutely titled Employee Healthcare Stabilization Fund. It was passed by a majority show of hands in May of 2019, and then the following Article 24, that fund was funded by the 1.9 million we got from SMHG. So, and unfortunately, last year, I just got an email saying there is no sound watching since 5 o'clock. All right, just reminding them.
Jack O'Neill just walked in
Yep,
as a
Jack
point
just
of
walked
order.
in. Someone sign language, Jack just walked in somehow. So even last year, we called it the SMHD Employee Benefit Stabilization Fund, when it really is, technically, through the motion passed 2 years ago, the Employee Healthcare Stabilization Fund. That's all it's called. Is that true, Barry?
I'd have to look at the wording, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, it's straight from here.
Okay.
So I consider this the town Bible when it comes to town meeting? Okay. So that's the first thing. So it really is, truly was passed as an employee healthcare stabilization fund. So a couple weeks ago, or about a month ago, I asked about this and said, and so I'm going to ask these questions again. Barry, why do we feel we need to use these funds?
Because if you remember, I think from that same vote, it was intended to be used for health insurance purposes. That was the only wording, I believe, in the motion that was passed at town meeting. So we've used it so far, last year, to, I suppose, help reduce the health insurance costs.
So what is the event this year that says we ought to use a stabilization fund? So stabilization funds, just like our normal town stabilization funds, of which we're close to $5 million in stabilization. So what is the event this year? We had a 1.76% increase in our health insurance rates this year. That's half the increase of what we're seeing in our budget. So what's the event that causes the need to use this fund this year?
I don't know if you have to have an event, Steve, but what you have to have is you have to have an argument that it be used for health insurance purposes. And so any year that you have any increase in health insurance could be or does satisfy the reason for using it out of that stabilization fund. For example, last year, we used almost twice as much for the
Yes.
stabilization fund.
Yes, and I passed the memo around that was written to support that. Each of you have it now. There's your copy right there. This was written, approved by the OPEB task force, and also approved by this select board unanimously, approved by the FinCom unanimously as well. And it justified the use of the $258,000 based on an event that happened last year, meaning we had excessive costs because of both under 65 retirees, an increase in under 65 retirees that contribute to or participate in the active health plan, and the Medicaid population, or Medicare, the non-Medicare population in the over 65 spot. So again, there isn't an event that causes us to need to stabilize our healthcare expense. So the second page, and please take that chart right there. What I did this morning, since I asked for this a few weeks ago and never got it, is I took the munis output. So y'all got it? Y'all looking at it? Thanks. I took the munis output that's online that supports our budget. And so what you see is the town amount at the top. You see the school amount in the individual items, health insurance, health retirements, Medicare, life insurance, dental employment. So all of the benefits that we have in this current budget right here. In fact, it totals to You see the column there, 2022? 6.3 million for town and 11.2 million for school. Now, if you look at town by itself, and I saw this, I was shocked by it, actually. See that first line, fellow board members? The 2022 budget has a 20.1% increase in town health insurance. I looked at that this morning, and that shocked me. Wait, we had a 1.76% increase, but this budget has a 20% increase in health insurance.
So couldn't that be people going on family plans too?
It could be a lot of things. It could be additional
not just the rate.
FTEs, it
It's
could
not
be
just the rate.
allocations, but, yes. So I considered that. I'd like an answer from Barry as to why that is.
Yeah, I think that we are waiting still for the exact numbers to come in as far as what enrollment is. And the numbers that we used for the FY22 budget was based on projections at that time. we had.
Yep. So I looked at that and I said, wait a minute, there's the excuse. There's the reason for me to support Article 1, Motion 1. But unfortunately, I dug a little deeper. I took the school numbers in there as well. And when you add the school numbers, which is a decrease in health insurance of 5.5%, there actually is a decrease in health insurance costs in the 2022 budget of 0.4%. All right, then I said, okay, maybe there's something else that he's got here that justifies using this fund. So I said, let's take all the health insurance we have here. So the very bottom line you see there, the bottom line, guys, the bottom line here is when you add health insurance, health retirement, whatever health MIT is.
Mitigation.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's that mitigation account. Okay, that's interesting. Add that all up, it's still minus 0.1% increase, a $9,000 decrease in our health insurance costs. So again, I ask, what is the event that causes us to use a stabilization fund, an employee health care stabilization fund? And we're only talking $139,000, so it's not a lot, but still, we're only talking $139,000, so we should preserve that health care stabilization fund and just find somewhere else to fund that $139 out of the budget.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
You know, we all met at the joint meeting,
Yes.
and I think the vote was probably 12-0. I think Mr. Schoenfeld had left. He was busy coaching that night. So that was between the Finance Committee, the Select Board, and the School Committee to use that money.
Yeah, that's the consensus meeting,
So
right?
I would say we have a motion on the floor.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to respond to that.
Okay, go ahead.
I asked a month ago for the support like this. Got nothing. There was discussion about this, questioning this at the FinCom. That motion we made a month ago was an intent of the budget, not the specifics of the budget. It didn't say, we were in agreement that we were going to fund part of OPEB and get the rest next year. It was kind of principled. I asked the question and got silence while I was sitting there in the Plymouth Street soccer parking lot. I expected an answer to the question, and I didn't get it. So I did the research myself. And there is no justification at all to use an employee health care stabilization fund, of which was developed because of the good benefits and claims experience of our own employees, to fill our general budget. Now, if this number down here had been like 4%, I'd say, sure, that makes all the sense in the world. But we are spending $9,000, and it's a conservative estimate, like you just said, for 2022. We're spending $9,000 less on health insurance this year. Why should we be tapping an employee health care stabilization fund?
Do you want to comment?
Yeah, so again, the
Pull your microphone a little closer, just in case.
the stabilization fund was set up, again, for the purpose of health insurance purpose. The numbers that you have presented here, Steve, are, as I mentioned earlier, preliminary. So we don't have the final results, but what we do know is that the rates went up 1.76%. Once the final numbers are known, we'll know one thing, is that the rates have gone up 1.76% for health insurance. This spreadsheet obviously doesn't include just health insurance, it includes pension, so those numbers need to be taken out.
They are taken out on the very bottom of the page. I just went through that calculation. Minus 0.1% is just active and retiree health
So you took
insurance.
the full, the
It's
6
there.
million out for pension?
Yeah,
'Cause
I
I don't
took it
have a
out.
calculator.
I took it out, yes.
Okay. So regardless, the point of the matter is the health insurance rates have gone up 1.76%. So if you're looking for an event, which isn't necessary to begin with, but if you're looking for an event, then the event is the 1.76% increase.
What's the total budget increase?
Yeah, but that's, people
Yeah,
come
those
and
are
go.
preliminary
It
numbers.
doesn't matter. What is the, so why are we using factual use of a stabilization fund even under preliminary numbers?
Because the one thing we do know is that health insurance costs rise. I think it's fair to say that everybody understands universally our health insurance is not going down next year. We have about the same number of employees. Our rates went up 1.76%. I think it's fair to say, in common sense, that the health insurance costs for the town are not going down. So the purpose of using the healthcare stabilization fund is the same as it was last year, for the reason it was voted, for health
But
insurance
no,
purposes.
that is absolutely false. The reason why we used it last year is written in this memo and approved by all the boards, right here. It does not say to use this in perpetuity. It says a one-time use of it, and we'll look at it again next year.
Okay,
We never looked at it again next year. That's my question.
Let's,
Where's the examination of looking at this memo that I took time last year writing, with your help, by the way?
all right,
where is
let-
it?
Let me, Mr. Delvecchio, you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I deny the premise here. My recollection is that last year when we discussed the budget
Frank.
use of this,
Close to the mic, okay? Thank you.
can you hear me, Mr. Apsowitz? Okay, thank you. When we passed the budget last year, I thought this appropriation or this use of funds was on a pro rata basis. There was a formula presented. There was also a pro rata basis, and I believe that's what we did. At the budget consensus meeting we had recently, as chair of the select board at the time, or actually as an individual, because I didn't have any status as select board chair to impose this view on anyone, my statement was, here we are in the budget, we have $139,000. I will commit to asking the next chair to discuss this formula going forward, but I'm not prepared to redo the entire budget that everyone there, in general, in principle, agreed on for $139,000. And I did not guarantee at the time, though, that I would agree with this when we discussed it, but I'll be open-minded. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I think, Steve, I think you've made your point, you've raised your issue. I am happy to put this on an agenda for a future meeting, but we do have 25 other articles to get through.
I understand, I understand.
And you know, we can revisit it for next year. I think, like others have said, you know, we're so far along in the process for this year that, you know,
Can you help me get to a point where I can support the article?
I can't personally, no.
No, I mean, I'm not saying we have to, like I said a month ago when we had this call, I said, hey, just get me to a point where our intent of the board is to replenish this account in the fall when we're doing all this other stuff as well. I mean, I'd be happy to support this article, because it's both Article 1, Motion 1, and Article 2, Motion 2, if we had some kind of agreement that we'll look to replenish those funds later. But,
We said at the group meeting that we would discuss that possibly,
Yeah.
but after town meeting. I'm not making any guarantees, and to be perfectly honest with you, I don't like being held hostage.
you're not being held hostage, I'm bringing up a point that should
No,
have been...
Steve, you are. You do this every year.
No,
You
I'm
have
bringing up a
99
point.
things that are done to everybody's liking, and there's always one thing that you don't like, and you want to hold up everything.
I found this $2 million from my effort, and now we're spending it frivolously to fill budgets. That's the issue.
You didn't find that, just so you know.
With a great committee, with a great task force, with a great committee to do it. Now,
It's our money.
exactly, it would have been lost.
No, whenever we left the thing, we get our VAT pro
No,
rata
no.
share.
You remember what happened? They were
let's-
going to change the rules of the game, just like they
Talked
did.
about getting out of that years before we.
Let's take it down let's take it down a notch. I think we've discussed it enough. We've got a motion on the floor, and we've discussed, so I would suggest we take a vote. All right? All in favor of motion 1, warrant 1, what was the,
Article 1.
Article 1, excuse me. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
All right, so 4-1, and you have my commitment that we will bring this up, we will discuss it in the future.
I
It's
I appreciate
too
that.
late for this year, I think, to really get into it.
Again, a month ago, when I brought it up, it should have been examined, but
All
I
right,
went ignoring it.
Article 2,
Mr. Chair, move to approve article, support Article 2.
I'm going to make a, would you make a motion to approve the remaining articles to,
Oh, in one shot?
yeah. So it's 2, 4, 6, N, 12, 13, 14. That's it.
I'm sorry,
So
can you
moved.
repeat those? 2, 4, 6?
2, 4, 6, yeah, you can make the motion if you like. 2, 4, 6, 10, 12, 13, 14.
So moved.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on
So,
those?
since I wasn't here last time, I'd like to talk about Article 10, Motion 5.
Hold on. Motion what, Steve?
Motion 5, on page 17. All
Motion 5.
Okay, go ahead.
right, I wanted to, I did watch the broadcast from last week. I think it was a few days ago.
Motion 5 or motion 4?
Motion 5, right? This is on,
It's in the copies that are on your desk.
okay?
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the paper. I apologize.
Okay. Article 10, motion
When
5.
is it now?
It's no longer there presented as article, as motion 5. There is no motion 5. It's been amended to motion 3. And if the chair would like me to speak to that, I'm making the motion, so we can move forward.
So which article and which motion is the park I so support?
It is no longer present in there. and
Oh.
so we can talk about it.
Can I interrupt Kevin?
That's such a great thing to talk about in support of it. All right.
Do you want to talk about that? What changed? Or,
Sure, so in the previous version, so just so we're clear, so the new packets that were in, it was emailed out when we started the meeting.
Yep.
But we also have, actually,
You can grab the thing loose, Kevin.
yeah,
Sorry, I didn't.
we could just try that as well. So can you hear me?
yes.
So this was previously, as it reflected, it used to be Article 10, Motion 5, which was referred to for our last presentation that we had with Craig Waterfield Design Group, and it was in regards to Harry Chase Place. One of the things that ended up coming up is that there was some people who hadn't participated in the process. Mr. Trowbridge had pointed out, said, you know, that during the month of June, that we could do a public outreach process as it related to making sure that we could express and reach out to the local businesses, and also to maybe perhaps some of the people that have been involved in the past as prior, some of
In
the-
residence as well.
and residents as well, especially those in the Back Bay. It became clear and apparent that there were issues as it related to this proposed article that was going to be heading towards town meeting. I had a discussion with the chair and said that it was my recommendation that in order to do the proper vetting and to be able to make sure that we could be in a place to garner the necessary support to be able to do this the right way, and instead of rushing it, prepare an opportunity to really be able to vet this properly over the next 12 months. This is an annual grant program that would allow us to be in the competitive grant round for the next fiscal year. And while we couldn't apply for the same program, as you will recall, if you weren't here but witnessed on the replay of the meeting, this was an anomaly for the $400,000 grant park program, because of the fact that it has access to public transit within that short distance. Also, the availability of the required parking requirement, which bumps you up into a city category for the $400,000. Otherwise, you still are allowed to apply for the program, but it's for a lesser amount of an amount not to exceed of $100,000. So what we did in this motion as prepared, in the original motion 3, as you all will recall, that it had been for the Plymouth Street Recreation site for the playground. So the motion has been amended for the same dollar amount, but it's reflective of the park grant language. So if we were chosen for that, then we would be eligible for the 60% project eligibility cost, and that would be applicable to the Plymouth Street project. There was some confusion, even though the people had been, in the correct information that had been out there publicly. The Plymouth Street Recreation Complex for the playground was already on the capital improvements. Capital Improvement Committee had gone through and provided all of the updates of what was coming to town meeting. This was already in the pipeline anyway, but that we felt that this would be an advantageous move to be able to put a lesser amount for the grant of an application in for its due date. Again, that's for the beginning of July 2021. We would still submit that regardless if we get the grant as written. And in motion 3, this project can still move forward as presented regardless of the grant. But that if we were a recipient of the grant, that this would provide the opportunity to be applicable to be able to have $100,000 towards the project.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Any other comments?
Yeah, I wanted to talk
questions?
about last week too, but I really appreciate that, Kevin. So I'll only mention things in my comments that don't relate to the motion. You know,
Can you just stick to the motion?
I
'Cause
am,
we
I
got
am.
a lot more to
Well,
get
now
through.
it's changed, but,
Yeah.
so it's the motion as well as the change in our approach here. So with respect to the Fales Oil, I appreciate the presentation last week. You know, I was for that park 6 years ago. I was for the park 5 years ago when I was added to the Fales Oil Committee, who at the time was seeking the price out. They're just perfect design. In fact, I saw a lot of similarities between that design and the one 5 years ago. And then 4 years ago, when Representative Barrows basically cornered us into a decision to make a little pocket park that maybe 2 people actually use. But I also am aware that there's some lessons to learn here. We've missed out on 5 years of park grants when we could have been applying for them for Plymouth Street and so forth, or for fixing up Memorial Park, and that's, you know, what really concerns me. But I don't want to wait another 2 or 3 years for us to get moving on our parks. And so, are we waiting a year for perhaps completing the Harry Chase Jr. Park? Or are we waiting 2 years? What's this, how's this going to put us on the schedule?
Decided we,
Jess, you have a go ahead.
just a quick thing. We haven't, as a board, decided that we're going to do anything with that.
Agreed,
park.
agreed, but
So I
pursue
think,
it,
you know,
to pursue it, right.
yeah, I mean, I know how I feel, so I don't, know. You know, obviously you need 3 people to want to do something.
right.
So we haven't made that decision.
Yeah, I think
Just-
Kevin
just for
just
the
said
clear.
it would be a year if
Okay.
we were going to apply. If we had decided to go ahead, we'd be applying basically a year from now.
I mean, I like this
So, yes.
shift because the one thing that I heard from residents was, oh, we'd like to put stuff in the town meeting warrant that dangles some free money out there, and people vote because we might miss out on the money. And that's not good for business. It's not good for us to be out there saying that thing. So I'm kind of glad we're thinking about it that way. I do hope we build it, though. And I do hope we get Plymouth done, and I do hope we start looking at fixing Memorial, and I do hope we start really focusing, like Frank assumed last week. In my absence, you said that I do like open spaces and parks. So, you know, yes,
It's true.
message heard. Yeah. I do hope we really start focusing on our parks and recs, because have you ever been to the Hardtop on Robinson? I know you have. That is not a park, and 2,000 kids a day use that thing. I'm done. But
Okay.
I appreciate it, Kevin. I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the responsiveness.
Okay, so we have, oh, sorry, Frank.
I just have a quick comment. And it's true that some of us were in favor of that park 5 years ago, but there is a public board vote on the park, and I believe we all voted to put the parking lot there. There's a history behind that, and I'm sure that will come out at some point. But
Yeah.
there was thought and rationale, part of which was just that we had not done a parking study, and there was real concern from a lot of people that parking was an issue. So I think as we proceed, we'll hear the full story and why that ended up that way.
I fully
Mostly-
agree. I was reading some emails and some minutes from Neil. You were a big-time part of that Fales Oil Committee meeting back then.
Yeah, I was the chair.
You were, yes. And then some others, like Dana Horrigan and Matt Donnelly, became part of the downtown committee after that. So real good stuff. We need to listen to our residents when they act on our behalf. But I appreciate it.
And I think that's what we're trying to do, and I think that's what I said we wanted to do.
I agree with that.
Right.
I agree with your sentiment last week that I wasn't able to agree
And-
with in live and in person.
Yeah, and I know my vote on that issue was, you know, a small park is better than no park, so.
Exactly.
You know, sometimes you have to compromise, so. All right, so we have a motion and a second for those articles that you just mentioned. So take a vote.
Which was 2, 4, 6, 10, 12, 13, and 14.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
2,
All right.
3, 6.
5-0.
I thought it was 2, 4, 6.
Three's dropped, right?
Please drop.
There's no action on 3.
Yeah, we skipped over that. Yeah, that was correct.
So Mike, okay.
Yeah,
All
you're
right,
right.
so we are up to Articles, Article 16, which is in regards to the Green Communities Act. And in order to qualify for that, the town must meet 5 criteria to become designated as a green community. Criterion 5 requires that the municipalities minimize the life cycle cost of all newly constructed homes and buildings. The Department of Energy and, what's R, I forget what the R is for, recommends communities do this by adopting the Massachusetts Board of Building Regulations and Standards Stretch Code. So this is required in order for us to be designated a green community and get what would be a sizable grant of, I think, around $200,000. Any discussion on this, or do you want to make a motion? Make a
I don't know
motion.
if you want to make a motion.
Make a motion first, and then
Actually, I'd
we'll,
rather not make that motion.
Okay, I'll make the motion. Move to support Article 16.
okay,
I'll second.
all right. Any discussion?
Yes.
All right,
I did have some concerns. I mean, I want to be a green community, but I also had some concerns about the costs that, you know, builders and homeowners will eventually, 'cause
Yep.
eventually it gets passed on to homeowners. I'm sorry. I should be speaking into here. But, you know, when we had the discussions and asking our building inspector, you know, what the cost increases were, it seemed to me, from what he relayed to us, that they were minimal in nature as far as the inspections and things like that. Am I correct when we had that discussion?
I think he
My
said, you
assumption?
know, when this was originally passed, this stretch code, it was a stretch, but by today's standards, it's barely a stretch. That's what he told us, that's what the consultant from state of Massachusetts told us. But obviously, you know,
And how many towns and cities and towns have?
there's over 250, I believe.
Okay.
Like, we're very late to this party, and that's because we were at our municipal light department.
That's all I had.
All right, Steve?
No, I remember that conversation as well. In fact, it was right after we had our own air condition installed in the house that I hope to use on Sunday, by the way, for the first time. Those stretch codes were already being applied by this installer, including all the inspections by a third party afterwards. So, no, I agree. The only question I have is, did we get a chance for other developers and contractors in town to opine on this? Like, I've asked those that I work with,
That's gonna
but
be my
have we had that discussion before we put this on? Or is there something we could have after this gets approved that we can discuss and make a decision? I don't know.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, kind of what Steve said. I know that when this came up the last meeting, I had asked, you know, what's the added cost? And I don't want to quote exact, I don't remember. I think Bob said $600 or $800 more in permits or something, whatever. Subsequent to that meeting, my phone didn't stop ringing from builders, okay? And they're saying, oh, it's $8,000, $10,000, and like I'm hearing 18 different stories. You know, so maybe, like it's been said earlier, that a lot of this is already being incorporated into a new building anyway. And it's just that, you know, like Neil said earlier, it's not it was a stretch 10 years ago maybe, but now it's a little nudge. So, you know, I don't want to dissent on the vote. I'd like to, it's nice that we have all of our votes are in unanimous, so, but I do want to state for the record that I did reach out to builders, and I did talk to Bob Blackman myself, and in his opinion, he doesn't really think that, you know, again, I'm not a builder, that this is adding a lot more of a hardship than they already have to deal with when they're constructing new.
Right. And you also have to remember, there are benefits to having a energy-efficient home.
Right, but people
Over the
always
long
talk about
term,
the
you're going to
negatives.
save money on energy, so.
But the builders don't care about that, because they look at what's going to cost them to build it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're just going to pass the cost on.
right.
Right.
But then the consumers are also going to save the money in the long run
Theoretically.
on their
if
energy
it's-
costs.
If that's right.
It wouldn't be a bad idea, though, if we could have something during the summer, you know, have publicized that we're going to have discussions
Code
about
meeting?
this.
I'm
just
wondering
to talk about
if Bob could be at town meeting if questions come up on this.
Oh, he's going to be there, right?
Yeah,
Bob
actually,
Blackman.
we also have Lisa Sullivan from Green Communities, so she's going to be present.
Okay, good.
Oh, cool.
To be able to answer any questions.
Perfect.
And of course, Bob will be there as well as
right.
one of our department heads. But also, this is for new residential construction, only additions, renovations, and repairs are exempt from the stretch code. But just to echo the comments of the board this evening, that it's not a large stretch to get to where we are now. They're already doing the air testing. It's very de minimis at best. At this point in time, and now we're up to 290 communities who have signed on to
Thank
the
you.
green
Yeah,
communities.
Out of 351.
We're at the other side of the bell curve on this one, right?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment on this?
Nope.
All right, we have a motion and a second, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. All right, Articles 17 and 18 are being passed over.
What?
So Article 19 is to see if the town will adopt a new bylaw in relation to registration and maintenance of abandoned buildings.
And this is a general bylaw, not a zoning bylaw.
Yeah, and I don't know, if Barry, do you feel equipped to give a better summary of this than I can?
Sure. This came about, I think, Steve had brought it up, but maybe others, and I think Neil as well.
Yeah, in relation to
Brought
the,
up because of the condition of the Payne School at that time. It was frankly unsightly to all of us, and we wanted to put into place something that addressed buildings that obviously are still owned by somebody, but are in disrepair and frankly dangerous, and an eyesore to the community. And so I was charged with developing a bylaw proposal. I borrowed it from Attleboro, and we converted it into Mansfield's own. And we addressed the registration and the maintenance of abandoned buildings. And so we did it in a way that we were very careful to make sure that we weren't overburdening somebody to fix a broken window. And require, this was for truly buildings or structures that were obviously abandoned and unsafe. And so we, after going through several iterations and several meetings with the building inspector and planning director and Mr. Ryan Yu, of course, we came up with, I think, a very workable, very understandable, and a very useful bylaw change that addresses abandoned buildings, and that's both for residential and commercial buildings. And I think that throughout this whole process, we've shared it with the select board so that we were gaining your input as well. And so I think what we have before us for Article 19 is a result of all that hard work by all those individuals.
thank you. That was a good explanation. You want to make a motion? We didn't make a motion yet, did we?
Make a motion to approve the bylaw as presented.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
We're not approving, we're recommending.
Supporting.
approval.
The
Supporting.
the motion stays to support.
To support.
Let me see here. No, I just question why we passed over 17 and 18, because they're in this version that you've just passed out.
They would have required a public hearing by the planning board, and that did not take place.
Okay, so they're misplaced in this version
Yeah.
that we just got, okay.
And so that's why in the new version that you have, and that's reflected on the website
This
as we
is the new
speak,
version I just got
the
tonight.
one that's on,
This was just at my desk.
this was before the new version got posted to the website.
All right.
This is
So
a new
It is
version.
reflected correct that it says.
Version that happened right after we started the meeting. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. All right, Article 20 is, has to do with the rail trail project. Barry, Kevin, can you explain this one?
Sure. So this is a follow-up to the vote that was taken at a November fall town meeting that was at the DPW. And so this is an amendment to the motion that this is the actual replaced and revised plan for the rail trail, so all the necessary easements, all the notifications have went out to anyone who's affected by this, and asking those people to contact the DPW director and to set up meetings with them just to be able to go over all the respective plans.
And this is for the extension through to Norton, correct?
That is correct.
Right, okay. All right, and somebody want to make a motion?
Make a motion to support
Second.
Article 20.
Any discussion? All right, take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Article 21 is a zoning bylaw. It says here that the airport Zone A was inadvertently left off the schedule of principal use regulations when 5G was adopted at last year's town meeting on June 23rd, 2020.
That is correct.
You want to make a motion on this one?
Motion to approve Article 21.
Or support?
Support.
Okay, second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Article 22 is, has to do with the business B4 and transit-oriented development zones. They had not been established when the adaptive reuse of historic structures bylaw was adopted in 2014. This amendment would add the use to those zones. Do you need any further explanation on this, anyone?
How does it change the TOD? In terms of-
How does it change the TOD?
Or how does it change the?
It
historic
allows
structure?
for the adaptive reuse of historic structures to take place in those zones.
So if there is a historic structure in that zone, okay.
Okay. You got a motion, anyone?
Just a quick question. This is by the planning board, correct?
This is by the planning board, yes.
I'll make a motion to support Article 22 as presented.
Second.
Second by Mr. Delvecchio. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The one thing we didn't ask whether the planning board fully supported or not, so maybe on these articles, we should see if what they voted.
These came, I don't have the exact numbers, but they all came in the affirmative to the select board. I can tell
Okay,
you
like
that.
unanimous, or was there
I
any?
can't tell you
Okay.
that, but I can tell you that.
At least
they-
a majority.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, they wouldn't be here.
All right, so you voted yes, Steve?
yeah, I did.
All right, 5-0. Okay, we're skipping over 23. Article 24 is to see if the town will vote to amend Section 230-5.4, the floodplain district. And there's many pages of
I'd like a reading of the
explanation. So,
This is required as FEMA updates things.
yeah.
And I think if you read anything in the paper over the last few years, I think North Attleboro really fought with FEMA over this, and they didn't win because they didn't agree with a lot of the elevations. To my knowledge, I don't think a lot of the elevations have changed. It's really just an update going from the last approved was 2009. Now it's the 2015.
Okay.
And through the
Yep.
chair, particularly on this item, it mostly is definitions that are required to be changed, not so much the actual floodplain district itself. So Caitlin Gagne will be ready to be able to talk about that in more detail coming for tonight, and any questions for this evening's presentation and anything as it relates to town meeting as well.
Okay. I'll make a motion.
Move
Make
to
a-
support 24.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Article 25, this article, if adopted, will revoke civil service coverage for the town fire department's firefighters, but will only affect firefighters hired after this revocation vote and not any incumbent firefighter currently covered by the civil service law. If you want to expand on that at all, or?
Sure, Mr. Chair.
We have the chief with us,
This is for
too.
Article 25, particularly
That's
for the.
fire, sorry.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, go ahead.
Particularly as it relates to the Mansfield Fire Department. The same thing for Article 26 that was adopted 1 year earlier for the Mansfield Police Department as well. This will provide an opportunity to have some greater flexibility as it relates to our hiring practices, the speediness of which this can actually occur as well. You've heard the police chief and the fire chief during their tenure, and chiefs even before them, and you've heard terms such as, it's difficult to be able to hire off of a civil service list, particularly when you have an opening that occurs, or a retirement, or the funding for a new position, that is. and you may be towards the end of the list. A new list may not come to the police and fire departments in Massachusetts for a year or 2 years or more. And you end up going through, you're exhausting the list. You get to the bottom of the list, those are the people that have ranked from the top to the bottom. So this new way of being able to go through by getting out of civil service provides the opportunity for the best hiring practices for both police and fire. And we want the best staff to be responding to our residents who live in town, those who are most talented and those who to be able to have and be able to build a diverse workforce provides that opportunity if motions, Articles 25 and 26 were adopted. There'll still be the proper rules and regulations in place for any type of needed discipline or anything like that. It just doesn't go through the civil service process, but it'll be rules and regulations as established by HR department in conjunction with police and fire chiefs in conjunction with the unions as well. And that process has already started, isn't in place by the work of the police chief and the fire chief and with Jocelyn. So this would be a wonderful opportunity. I'd like to report that this would also has impacted negotiations for both police and fire, and they have agreed to remove themselves from civil service as well. So all of the necessary prerequisite things would be in place, and that we are hopeful that with your past support, that you'll continue to support these two articles for town meeting.
Okay,
Move to support?
thank you.
Second.
So we have a motion to support Article 25 and a second. Any discussion?
Quick question, Kevin, so that we can tell the audience, how many towns already removed civil service from there?
There have been several cities and towns across the Commonwealth. This isn't just recently. People have gone through over a period of time
Right.
to be able to remove themselves from civil service, particularly for the things that I just referenced here this evening. I would say several, especially in dealing with issues of police reform, you're seeing that happen more and more. So we're certainly not on the beginning side of this. I would say that we're middle of the pack, so to say.
Half of them? I tried to look it up, I couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah, so I
obviously.
don't think you would find that. But Chief, would you say that we would
Oh, you're
probably
there.
be about half of your departments at this point have probably come out of civil service?
Yes, I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of north of 100 communities are
Okay.
in civil service, which in a state of 300-plus communities, when you're looking to hire specifically lateral transfers, it makes it more difficult.
And a lot of those communities share forces as well, so it's not a full 351, but, okay. No, I appreciate that, thanks.
Okay, so Article 25, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Article 26, I don't, is the
Support
same thing,
26.
but referring to the town police department.
Move to support?
All right,
Second.
second by Steve.
Third.
Any discussion on this one? Okay,
Then.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Thank you very much. Now we are on to citizens' petitions. Articles 27 and 28 are to accept 2 new streets.
I'll make a motion to support Articles 27 and 28. We've had public hearings, we've laid them out. I believe all the checklists have been done, and they're holding some money back still.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
5-0 on 27 and 28. And now we are on to 29, we are passing, has been revoked, I get, or withdrawn, I suppose?
That's
Is
correct.
the right word?
Withdrawn.
Article 30 has been withdrawn. Article 31 is a citizen's petition, and I don't know, do we want to vote on these citizens petitions, the 2 or 3 that remain?
Normally, we
You
don't.
know what the planning board did on those positions? Those petitions?
I understand 31 they supported.
Okay, so wait, can you just give us a summary of 31?
So 31 is the zoning amendment, change the maximum floor area ratio in the B4 zone from .8 to 1.5.
It's floor to area ratio, FAR, is that what they're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what does that mean to the layperson?
It means that they can build more square footage. Point 8 is you can build basically 80% of your floor space. And how you want to break that up, whether it's 1 floor, 2 floor, is up to you. But with 1.5, you can build 150% of your lot area, but you could break, obviously, you'd have to break it up more than
Stories.
Right.
multiple stories.
And the B4 zone is the, pretty much the downtown business?
No, that's the,
No,
it's over
Copeland
on Copeland Drive.
Yeah, okay.
Otherwise known as the formerly Benny's district.
Formerly Benny's zone, okay.
There's Benny's, Patriot Tools,
All the way
right,
up to,
that little section in there.
all the way up to Starbucks, right? All the way up to Foxborough line? Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of that's undeveloped, obviously, but.
Okay,
or-
anyone want to make a motion?
We don't normally support
We don't, we
citizens
just,
petitions.
all right, we just,
Well, we did just support a couple of citizens
Discussing.
petitions
Yeah.
on the land, but I understand
It
why.
would- Yeah, if it was something that had a,
okay. And then
Financial.
Article 32 is, looks like it's something similar. Barry, can you summarize that one?
Sure, it adds standards to educational facilities in residential zoning districts. This is a citizen's petition. It was not supported by the planning board.
Okay. Any discussion on this one, or?
I personally support it. I've been kind of at the affected area, but I don't think it's a board position to take necessarily.
All right. So will the planning board speak about this at town meeting, or will they opine on it, or?
Yeah, I think they will
Yeah.
express they did not vote to support it.
Okay. And then the last article is 33, which is
Fluoridation.
discontinue adding sodium fluoride to the public water supply.
I can comment a little bit. So the chair of the Board of Health called me, because I'm the liaison for the selectmen.
Yep,
And she had said that the board, their board was meeting to discuss this. So I think they're gonna take a position on it. You know, I don't know which way they're gonna go on it.
right.
So I don't know if we want to hear what they have to say and then make a decision. I mean, we could meet early at the town meeting. You know, like we always post like an hour early or something, and we can, anything that's left open, we can kind of.
Yeah,
I'd like to hear it, because I had asked
Tanya
Amy.
was concerned about it, and, you know, she didn't tell me her opinion, she just said that, I said, that's what you guys do.
okay.
Let us
So
know,
we'll
you
put
know.
that on our agenda for the meeting before the town meeting.
The fluoride was actually instituted by the Board of Health approximately 19, 20 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. If you, I actually Googled it today, because just, and the American Cancer Society website has a comprehensive discussion of this issue, which is kind of non-conclusive, frankly, about whether fluoride is a danger or not. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of information out there, and it's,
All over the place.
I frankly
too.
don't feel qualified to make
Yeah.
a vote on it. Yes,
So I did the same yesterday, and the first hit was the CDC, and it says, yes, you need fluoride in your water for dental health, whether you're kids or whether you're adults. But then the second hit was Harvard Medical School, and it was a different story, frankly. But we posted something this afternoon kind of supporting the use of fluoride on our Facebook site, the town did. So I kind of think we have to either support that post, because it definitely was in favor of keeping fluoride in the water.
So we would not support the article then? That's what you're
Indeed.
saying.
In fact, I was kind of disappointed that we put something out there trying to encourage the voters to vote against this article, but for that purpose, since, you know, we are spokesmen for the town, I think we need to opine on it because that's out there.
I mean, the five of us can make our own decision too,
Agreed,
right?
agreed. But, you know, I'd kind of like to let citizens petitions kind of go out there by themselves and not have the
This is where the
town
chips fall.
be involved. Yeah. But I do have a question in general, and we should probably ask this of Lee or something, but what is the right amount of fluoride in drinking water?
yeah, that was
I have
on
no clue.
the site I was on. It was different. There's an EPA standard, there's another standard. They said, you know, now we all get fluoride, you know, in our toothpaste and other sources, so maybe we need
Right.
less in the water. It's, you know,
I'm sure between
complicated.
the Board of Health and Kurt, we could probably have a great discussion, so.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this, you know, could just be an agenda item in the future,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I hope someone presents it, what our current levels are
Right.
on Monday, so the population can understand.
All right. All right, I was going to ask the town manager to give his report, well, but I'll just wait till he comes back, and then, so why don't we move on? So that was pretty efficient, thank you, everyone, for the, getting through the town meeting warrant articles. So number 5 on our agenda is consideration of MMAS one-day beer and wine licenses for 13 dates in consideration to waive the license fee for each event.
Mr. Chairman, I
Sir.
move to approve the one-day beer and wine licenses for 13 dates for MMAS and waive the license fee for each event.
Second.
All right, do we have any discussion?
We've done it before.
All right, they are a nonprofit organization, right? So, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Okay, next up is discussion and consideration for Massachusetts School Building Authority Statement of Interest applications for the high school and Qualters Middle School boiler replacements.
And this is the same thing that we actually voted on last year, but we didn't get funded for it, so they're resubmitting the same exact thing.
Okay?
So this is a grant of some sort?
What's that?
It's a grant application?
It's grant application.
Like to hear that.
Would you like to make a motion, Mr. Clerk?
I don't have one. Oh, let's see. Oh, I need to read both of these. Here we go. Sit back and enjoy.
You've been slacking over there.
This is the required form of vote to submit a statement of interest. Mansfield Select Board meeting May 19th, 2021. That's tonight. Resolved, having convened in an open meeting on May 19th, 2021, the Select Board of the Town of Mansfield, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated May 14, 2021, for the Qualters Middle School located at 240 East Street, Mansfield, Massachusetts 02048, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority category or categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Submitted statement of interest, priority 5, the Qualters Middle School was constructed in 1953. The building boilers are over 25 years old and in poor condition. They do not operate effectively and efficiently. This situation and the environment it creates presents many challenges in delivering the best education possible for the students of Mansfield, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Okay, now that that one's clear, I will go on to the next one. Required form of vote to submit a statement of interest, Mansfield Select Board meeting May 19th, 2021. Resolved, having convened in an open meeting on May 19th, 2021, the Select Board of the Town of Mansfield, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated May 14th, 2021, for the Mansfield High School located at 250 East Street, Mansfield, Massachusetts 02048, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Submitted statement of interest, priority 5, the Mansfield High School was constructed in 1967. The building boilers and related components were last upgraded in 1989 and currently do not operate effectively and efficiently. This situation and the environment it creates presents many challenges in delivering the best education possible for the students of Mansfield, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
All right,
Second.
motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, 5-0. Thank you for that compelling reading, Frank. All right, Kevin, I know you've got something to get to at 7 o'clock. Do you want to do your town manager's report now?
Sure.
If you're ready. If not, we can continue on, come back to you.
And we also have the executive session tonight as well.
Right.
So just to be able to go over it quickly, as you know from your meeting packets, I had sent out your update on Monday. Afternoon. I thought that the update package was in here. Mr. Chair, if you would go on while I
Okay.
go find the
We'll
document.
Keep going. All right. Number 7 is discussion and consideration to lift Phase 2 mandatory outdoor water restrictions.
Mr. Chairman, I move to lift the Phase 2 mandatory outdoor water restriction.
Second.
Any discussion on this?
So we're saying we have plenty of water?
So we're going back to Phase
Yeah.
1?
One, which is,
So you,
That's a good thing.
Mansfield Phase 1, yes.
anyone, what does it mean in practical terms as far as when you can water and when you can't?
So it just goes back to the regular odd even
Okay.
schedule that we had. So we received notification that our area, as determined by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts through DEP, is no longer underneath because we've had ample water. So that restriction has been lifted.
Yep.
In the future, for your consideration, that we'll actually put in the vote that if the conditions change as dictated by the state, that we wouldn't have to come back to remove the restriction.
All right, okay.
In layman's sense, Foxborough's water supply, that the wells have been reading above normal, and they just returned to normal. There's not really one in Mansfield, but the water sources that they read the USGS wells.
Yeah.
The Attleboro one has been at normal, so we're actually in a good place water-wise.
All right, good. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
no, because I don't think we actually, Lee already has the opportunity to do this by himself. He doesn't have to wait for us to declare, right?
It's because in the past, per our research that we did for prior votes would have in the language that automatically, if
Right.
the conditions change, it would be coming off. I don't want to be presumptuous of that, since our vote did not include that language. I wanted to be able to put this on the agenda item for your consideration tonight.
Okay. So we have a motion. Did we get a second?
Sure, second.
Second?
Yeah, he made the motion, I made the
Yeah,
second.
Steve, second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Next item is warn to adopt Mansfield fuel-efficient vehicle policy. And this is related to the Green Communities Act as well, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's exactly right, and as part of that community program, Green Community Program, this is one of the criteria that the town needs to consider adopting, and in addition to the stretch code that we talked about earlier. So what you've been given is a pretty standard fuel-efficient vehicle policy that we received from Green Communities that goes along with their program. So I hope that you've all had a chance to review it. The school committee is set to vote on it as well, which is also necessary.
Right.
And so, you know, it's I think one of the important things to talk about, it doesn't apply to every vehicle. It only applies to, for example, it doesn't apply to the larger trucks. It doesn't apply to public safety at this point unless and until those types of cars are readily available. So it's more common sense type of vehicles. The town assessor should not be driving a, old Crown Vic, for example. to
Lead
go
cylinder
from-
Crown Vic, right?
Yeah. So I think if you've had a chance to look at it, they're very common sense policies in here. And so, once again, the Green Communities is requiring this to be adopted.
And I think similar to this building codes, when this Green Communities Act was established, it was under Deval Patrick, so it was like 2010 or somewhere around there. It was a while back, and what's considered a fuel-efficient vehicle is not too much of a stretch here. Again, I know we have Chief Sellen in the back room here. Do you care to comment? 'Cause you had mentioned to me you might be moving towards hybrid vehicles yourself for the police force?
Yeah, so we're currently looking at where we have slated in the fall replacement for vehicles, 3 of which we are looking to potentially replace with a hybrid for that would be more fuel efficient. So in keeping with the town policy.
So there you go. If you couldn't hear probably, but if the chief is saying that they may be replacing 4 of their vehicles with hybrids in the fall. So I would imagine, if the police department can do that, then it should be pretty easy for the rest of the town, right? All right. Well, let's get a motion and then we can discuss further.
I know that, if I could just add one more thing, I think the version that you have has Mansfield School Committee and Mansfield School Department inserted in there. I think that there's one more change that the school committee wanted, and that was to add, where it says purchase, to add lease or purchase. And so I would ask that, could you incorporate into your vote that is also in here? Okay.
But this is a warn, not a vote, so
We don't need to make a vote?
It would be the next meeting.
warn us next time, and we'll make sure we
Okay,
do that.
gotcha. Thank you. Yeah, I'm learning new stuff.
When
every
is
day.
the school committee actually voting? Because that was my question, that we're voting on something kind of pigeonholing them. I hope that they have no issues. Do you know if they are fully on board?
They provided their feedback back to us.
Okay.
But it's on their next agenda.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, very good. Kevin, are you ready now, or?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, it was in the back of my folder here. So first of all, it's nice to see everybody in person. And it is as a result of what's happening across the Commonwealth. Our cases are considerably down, just as you've seen across the Commonwealth. Fully opening back up. Per my report, you've seen the fact that we're setting up our biweekly meetings with Jason Sandoval from the Xfinity Center. They are not going to expedite their season because of the fact of what they need to do to get ready, in addition to certainly what the town and everyone else needs to do to get ready, and hiring and getting a place that's been closed for 2 seasons up and running is considerable. So even though that we're going to full reopening as of the 29th, that we're not going to see that type of effort at Xfinity preceding the August date. So that's important to note, but certainly that this is welcomed for all businesses and for people who are vaccinated, who've done the right thing, getting their vaccinations, to be able to be back to our normal limits, which would be fantastic. And we're really looking forward to that. And our in-person meetings we've been talking about, coming back to our in-person meetings, we will still have our virtual opportunity. To be able to have those people joining us virtually for our larger committees. So for Select Board, School Committee, Finance Committee, Planning, Zoning, and Concom, we'll continue to do this hybrid version here in this room. And at the same time, for the other people, we'll go back to the normal meeting schedule. The task force is meeting next week as it relates to after town meeting, to coming up with our protocols, and we'll be getting those out. But that's scheduled directly after town meeting, so we're working very closely with everyone on that. But we're really excited for that, and we're happy about moving forward. Shout out to the water department. They have been, again, for their outstanding performance in calendar year 2020. So they've received the large community systems category for the Mansfield Water Division for the public water system for their outstanding performance and achievement. And calendar 2020 and the certificate is for this year in 2021. So that was located in your report. An updating, again, somewhat related to water. The PFAS grant notice was received this week, so the town received this grant opportunity for the interim PFAS 6 response program, which allows for costs associated with PFAS to be applied for. So we will be applying for the Walsh Well project, which is going to be our second PFAS project. So we'll more to follow on that, but that's positive for another grant opportunity. We're still waiting on our property and casualty insurance for our current carrier, as well as Maya. Our tax title is tonight, so Mr. Lacasse, thank you for you to going over to Mansfield High School with our treasurer collector, some other town staff, the town engineer, public buildings will be there tonight as well, in addition to attorney Mike Siddell, who's the town's tax title attorney, who'll be conducting the actual sale. Registration is at 6:30 in about 7 minutes. We'll start, the auction will start for 7 p.m. We wish them wonderful success tonight and bringing in some needed dollars for the town. So, and again, for all the hard work and dedication for everyone involved on a very complicated project, but they've done a wonderful job, and publicly thanking all of them who are involved. There's been an extensive time, and we'll have another time in an agenda item talk about this, but I've included, it's more than 2 full pages, small font, in color coded, on the Highway Division update. I just asked you to take a look at that. As this will be ongoing throughout the season. There's also additional tabs that I did not include in the document, but you'll see how much the Highway Division is doing and is responsible for a few further updates. But they're going to certainly have a busy season, and they're off to a busy start already. But thanking them for their efforts thus far for the 2021 season. As you're aware, on the Economic Development Front, we're certainly pleased since our last official meeting of the Providence Bagel Company will be coming this summer to 214 Rumford Avenue. So I made contact with Chris from the company. We'll be meeting once he gets closer towards construction, per he and I in our email exchange, and we look forward to this, another new business coming to Mansfield. Also making progress on our business outreach efforts. So this month, the IDC, along with Penta and myself, will begin making our business efforts and business outreach to schedule our first round of monthly meetings with our top 20 real estate and personal property taxpayers. The first round is going to include Medtronic, Amazon, and WS Development. Viewpoint and Dennis Quaid will be more to discuss with that offline, but doing some national opportunities for some marketing efforts for the town that I'm involved with, and with Penta Communications. We're really happy about that, but there'll be more to follow on that. Negotiations and executive session this evening, particularly with one of our unions, that we've reached a milestone, which is fantastic. So this will be our second out of 5 unions, and we'll be talking about that shortly. We talked about the lifting of the water restriction tonight, which we're very happy about. Also, open house, keeping on your schedules. The police and fire departments have scheduled an open house on June 6th. It's going to be from 1 to 4 p.m. We'll follow any of our requirements in place. It's going to be in the fire apparatus deck and the associated parking area directly behind the fire bays. And this will include touch-a-truck and police cruiser, health screening clinic, car seat installation, and general information tables. So again, please mark your calendars, and for those who may be watching on television or virtually with us tonight. And again, we have our upcoming swearing-in ceremonies. That's been rescheduled, so thanks to police and fire chiefs on that. Again, at our public safety complex at 6/2 at 4 p.m. in the apparatus bay for both police and fire promotions. And that will conclude my report for this evening, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Kevin. Go with select board questions and comments on the town manager's report. Jess, anything?
No, I'm glad we're gonna have the fire and police folks sworn in. I know they've been waiting patiently, and I think some have been in service in their new roles almost a year or more, whatever, but, you know, we want to give them the respect that we give everybody else. I know with COVID, it's been tough, but congratulations to all of them, and we'll see them soon. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great.
Mike, anything?
No, actually, Mr. Chairman, we're the beginning of the meeting. Apparently your statement
Did not record?
did not record.
Yeah, I planned to.
Would you be
I will
redoing?
reread it at the, I think I'll do it at the end.
Okay. So, that being said, I'll just try to speed things up. Go ahead.
Okay. Frank?
In the interest of time, I'll move on.
Okay. Steve?
These are questions and comments
Yes,
for him?
for-
Yes, I have no questions.
All right. In the interest of time, I'll defer as well, so thank you, Kevin. Item number 9 is a review and approve consent agenda.
I'm ready, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Consideration and approval of town payroll warrants.
I love it.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve town payroll, town Medicaid payroll 21046 PT in the amount of $380,972.08.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve town deductions vendor payroll 21046 TV in the amount of $119,483.78.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
And correspondence, I think I will read this. It's about the resignation of a Conservation Commission member, but for a positive reason. And it's to the Honorable Town Clerk. I am writing to inform you of my resignation from the Mansfield Conservation Commission. While I have enjoyed my time serving our community on the commission, it is time for me to begin serving the town in my role as town moderator. As town moderator, I plan to serve with the utmost integrity and impartiality. To fulfill my duties diligently and fairly, I must resign from the Conservation Commission, and he goes on. Good luck to Costas. Be seeing him in action next week. This is
Okay.
Costas Lucas, by the way,
Justice Lucas,
for those who don't know.
anyone want to comment on his? Okay. I'll just say congratulations to
Congratulations.
Justice, our new town moderator, who's going to have, be put to the test next Monday, so wish him the best. All right, we are up to select board members' comments and questions. We start with Steve on your end.
I know some towns are gathering together to celebrate Juneteenth. Do we have a way to bring that forward somehow? Maybe we can use the town Facebook page to communicate that. As the resident mentioned that, I should say that. I can give you the name. You can reach out after, Kevin. On that same subject, I think one thing we might want to take a look at is the diversity and inclusiveness policy. It's been more than a year since a lot of the events have happened that created such a movement. I think we ought to finally respond and develop such a policy. In the email requested from the chair, I recommend that we have a master plan implementation committee at some point. So maybe we talk about that when we talk about the positions. And then for any seniors out there that took the year off because of COVID from their council on, not council on aging, from their senior tax relief job, call up the town hall, call up the council on aging. If you want that tax relief, get back to work, basically. I know quite a few did not have the opportunity because of COVID, but now that we're kind of ending it, maybe they can come back and get some relief from the taxes. Oh, on that note, last year, Barry, we provided a estimate of what the increase in the taxes would be during the town meeting presentation. Do you plan on doing that again this year?
Yes.
Okay. Any thoughts that, I know we've been talking about the update, almost every week, Kevin, you talk about the increase in, valuations of homes and so forth. That's going to affect the split. Is there any way we can project what that split could be based on this current
Not yet.
something?
We just assume the same split in the
Agreed. We assume the same split, like we can't say there's going to be this much or more, but we should kind of consider that. But that is one of the most urgent things we need to deal with in the next year. It is way out of control compared to our neighbors. Last thing, and Kevin wasn't here for this part of the conversation, but Article 1, Motion 1, can you correct the name of, or find out whether that's the right name and correct the name of the fund? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur with Mr. Schoenfeld and his comments about our diversity and equity policies. I'd go further and say I assume that since we worked out the process last year, that we will be considering goals and objectives fairly quickly in the new year, and also assessing where we stand on the others. But yes, these goals need to be addressed. We're going to begin addressing them at town meeting. So I concur with that. I'd also like to say a little bit, it's good to be back here, and it's good to see each other face to face so that we can discuss things and get a sense of feeling. Sometimes the Zoom meetings are a little different, and you don't really get the tone. And I'm hopeful during the year that we try to stretch, we try to maintain a tone of civility insofar as possible. We can all disagree. We can all disagree on our facts and our opinions, but we should be civil, and I hope that passes on to all the committees. Sometimes there's a tendency to stand on your soapbox, and that's fine. We all do it. But when you stand on your soapbox, what comes out of your mouth should be, accurate. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
No, based on the time, I have nothing.
Jess?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real quick, Neil, thank you for your statement. I think you were very eloquent and pretty detailed on that. And, I think moving forward, we all have to, work together. The half-truths or quarter-truth have to stop, and the haymakers have to stop. What bothers me is some of those comments were alluding to staff, and they work their butts off. And, it's not stopping there. And, I congratulate Kevin and his whole team. They work very hard. And I just don't like false truths. So the error's been cleared. Neil stated what happened on that issue and other issues, and we have to move forward and all work together. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, everybody. Just a few quick comments. So just a reminder, town meeting is next Monday at 5:30. We need to get at least a quorum of 100, I believe we voted, but we prefer to have 200 or more, or thousands. So mark your calendars. There's a preview of the meeting tonight in about 20 minutes, but that'll be running on cable TV, I assume, so you can watch it at your leisure. Coming up, you mentioned the goals, Frank. At our next meeting, June 2nd, I would like to go through the spreadsheet that the goals we already created and just do a status update on what's already out there. Some of them I know we've completed, others, just kind of see where we are and map out where we want to go over the remainder of this year. And we'll also discuss the boards and committees at that next meeting as well. And then I'd also like to just throw out one other idea for board members. A lot of times, we have to rush through a lot of things, but when the schedule allows, I would like to invite everyone, if you have a particular topic that you'd like to, go a little deeper on, for 15 or 20 minutes or whatever it might be, you can email those to me, and, we can, sometimes we have a light schedule, and maybe we can set aside some time to go deep on something that we don't often get the time to get into. All right, so with that said, one final comment. Just driving in here today, just looking at the South Common, and if you would just drove into Mansfield and that's the first thing you saw, you would say, what a beautiful town. I've never seen it looking that good. From the grass to the trees, the plants, everything, it's immaculate. So I just think that's something we should all be proud of. So kudos to the DPW crews and everyone and garden clubs, and Keep Mansfield Beautiful, and everyone who works to keep that looking great. All right, lastly, so we had some audio problems at the beginning of this meeting, so I apologize for you all who have to sit and listen to me read this statement again, but I feel it's important for people to actually hear it besides the 5 of us, or the 7 of us. So I'm going to read this, and then we'll adjourn and we'll go into executive session. So bear with me, this will take about 5 minutes. So as the newly elected chair of the Select Board, I'd like to open tonight's meeting, or now I'm closing it with this statement. I'd like to respond to recent posts and comments that have been made on social media and elsewhere during the course of the recent town election. These comments relate to the Select Board's decision to increase the town manager's compensation back in October 2019, 19 months ago. Let me preface this statement by stating that, as a member of the Select Board, I understand and I appreciate that Mansfield residents may disagree with the decisions that board members make on behalf of the town of Mansfield. Select Board members are elected to do what we each believe is in the best interest of our town and its residents, and it's to be expected that some people are going to disagree with some of the decisions that the Select Board makes, and that is everyone's right as an American and a Mansfield resident. That said, Select Board members have a right and a duty to set the record straight when inaccurate and false information is being circulated in public. This is especially true when this misinformation calls into question the integrity or motivations of members of the Select Board. During the course of the recent election campaign, as well as the days following the election, numerous public posts and comments have suggested that the Select Board gave the town manager a raise in secret or made, and here I'm quoting from a recent campaign flyer, a backroom deal. I'd like to take this opportunity to educate the public, including those who believe that the Select Board acted in a non-transparent manner, how town manager compensation issues are actually managed here in Mansfield. So here are the facts of town manager Kevin Dumas's hiring, performance evaluations, and compensation. These facts have all been a matter of public record going all the way back to December of 2017. On December 18th, 2017, the Select Board interviewed 3 finalists for the job of Mansfield Town Manager: Walter Wilk, Michael Hartman, and Kevin Dumas. At that same meeting, the board voted 4-1 to enter into contract negotiations with Kevin Dumas. On December 27th, 2017, Kevin Dumas signed a contract to become our new town manager with a starting salary of $160,000. Soon thereafter, the contract was posted on the town's website, and it has been publicly available ever since then, as is our standard practice. In May 2019, the board evaluated Mr. Dumas's job performance in an open televised meeting, and on a scale of 1 to 5, with 4 meaning very good and 5 meaning outstanding, Mr. Dumas was given an overall performance rating of 4.0, which is very good. On July 17th, 2019, the Select Board voted to increase Mr. Dumas's salary 3.12% to $165,000. The term of the contract was also extended through January 2nd, 2022, which is 1 year longer than the original contract. In October 2019, Select Board members became aware that Mr. Dumas was being recruited by another town and that the salary level being offered was significantly higher than what he was currently earning in Mansfield. On October 2nd, 2019, all 5 members of the Select Board met in executive session to discuss the town manager's pay. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss what, if any, counteroffers the Select Board wanted to make in order to retain Mr. Dumas as the town manager in Mansfield. For those who may not be familiar with the rules, under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, an executive session allows for private discussions to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Contrary to social media posts that have suggested otherwise, this is standard operating procedure and is no different than how the Select Board has handled the town manager compensation issue in the past. On October 16, 2019, the Select Board met again in executive session to discuss this matter further and voted to make an adjusted salary offer. In that meeting, the board voted to present to Mr. Dumas an offer for a contract amendment that would offer to increase his base salary to $207,000, but not effective until July 1st, 2020. As a first step, the proposed offer would set the base salary increase to $186,300 effective October 18th, 2019, an increase of 12.7%. The additional increase to $207,000, which was an 11% increase, would be offered to take effect July 1st, 2020. The vote was 3-1 in favor, with Mr. Schoenfeld voting no. Mr. Ryan was unable to attend this meeting and was not present. On November 6, 2019, the Select Board voted 4-1 in an open televised meeting to approve changes to the town manager's contract. As the public meeting minutes show, Board Chair Jess Aptowitz stated publicly for anyone to hear that contract negotiations with Mr. Dumas were successful and that the Board and Mr. Dumas had reached an agreement as follows. Mr. Dumas's base salary would be adjusted to $186,300 effective on October 18, 2019, and then to $207,000 effective July 1, 2020. There was also a clause to be added to the contract by mutual agreement that should Mr. Dumas decide to leave his job, he would be required to give the town 1 year's advance notice. And the publicly available meeting minutes also state the following, and here I'm quoting from the actual meeting minutes. Mr. Schoenfeld noted that the process and timing was before the annual review time, and he had hoped to have more time to do a competitive salary review, and he would like to introduce a 360-degree review of the town manager, but agreed that he was happy with his performance, but would be voting no based on the timing. Mr. Ryan had no comments. Chairman Aptowitz stated that he was extremely pleased with Mr. Dumas's performance, and he hears nothing but good things from the community on his performance. Mr. Trowbridge stated that in a very short time, Mr. Dumas has moved things along very quickly. Mr. Del Vecchio apologized for not being physically present, but wanted to call in and show respect to the town manager and the residents to make this vote. He thought the board was offering a competitive market-based contract to the town manager. So the board voted 4-1 to approve the new contract, with Mr. Schoenfeld voting no. At this same meeting, as we do at every meeting, we provided anyone who had a comment or question the opportunity to speak up. No comments were raised by residents, nor by any members of a town board or town committee, including the Finance Committee, at either that Select Board meeting or any subsequent Select Board meetings. In regards to Mr. Dumas's current salary, I think it's helpful for residents to know what other town managers and town administrators in our area in our area currently earn as base salaries. Take a sip of water here. The Norton Town Manager, as of July 1st, 2021, will have a base salary of $162,074. The Foxborough Town Manager will have a base salary of $213,631 as of July 1st. The Norwood Town Manager's base salary will be $203,162 as of July 1st. The Franklin Town Administrator will have a base salary of $201,756 as of July 1st. And the Walpole Town Administrator currently has a base salary of $199,875. And the Sharon Town Administrator currently has a base salary of $202,985. So the average of these six base salaries is $197,232.16. So as these numbers indicate, Mr. Dumas's compensation is competitive with the pay of other surrounding town managers and town administrators. Since being hired in January 2018, Mr. Dumas's performance has been evaluated formally by the Select Board twice. As previously noted, in May 2019, he received an overall rating of 4.0, which is very good, on a scale of 1 to 5, and in March of 2021, he received an overall performance rating of 4.06. Now, it's important to note that when a town manager leaves his or her position, it can often derail forward progress for 1 to 2 years. A search committee has to be formed, candidates must be vetted and interviewed. It can also be quite expensive to hire a consultant to recruit qualified candidates. And even after a replacement is hired, it can take a new town manager anywhere from 6 to 12 months to get fully up to speed. These factors played a role in the Select Board's decision to give the town manager a substantial raise. To summarize what actually occurred, a majority of the Select Board voted to increase the town manager's compensation in order to retain his services. As the performance evaluations indicate, Mr. Dumas is an effective, hardworking, and knowledgeable town manager. Keeping him on board required us to offer a more competitive salary. That's exactly what the Select Board decided to do, with full transparency and in full compliance with Massachusetts general laws. Now, while residents are always free to disagree with this decision or any decision we make, recent assertions that the Select Board acted secretly and without transparency are simply inaccurate. Going forward, as the Board Chair, I hope I speak for all members of this Select Board when I pledge that we will continue to operate with full transparency, as we have always done in the past. I call on other town boards and committees to do the same. And finally, I urge all members of every Mansfield board and committee to work cooperatively, communicate honestly and respectfully, and always work in the best interests of all Mansfield residents. In the end, we are all part of the same team, and that's Team Mansfield. Thank you. Okay, so for those who were wondering, that's the second time I read that tonight. We had audio problems at the beginning of the meeting. All right, so at this point, we are going to move into executive session and not return to open session.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move to enter into executive session and not return to open session under exemption number 2, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21, to discuss strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, and approve executive session meeting minutes of March 31st, 2021.
Second.
Okay, and is part of that that we will not return to open session?
Not to return to open
Yes.
session.
Okay, all right. So this requires roll call vote.
Yep.
Jess?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
I vote yes. Do we need a motion to adjourn this open meeting?
Nope.
That did it.
That's
Did it?
You say we're adjourned.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.